So I'm here to talk about an organization I founded with four other people called the Media Mobilizing Project. And when I was introduced, there was a whole litany of things I did, and I would never take credit for all those things. There's a lot of people who work on this project. We work with, as I'll tell you, we work with a bunch of groups in Philadelphia. It's a very local project, and a lot of activists in the city. A bit about me, because it's somewhat germane to our work. I'm finishing, I'm in the last stages of a PhD, but my research is on the role of media in social movement building, and really the way new media, and that's digital media and video, but also the internet, etc., converges with the changes in work and labor in the 21st century, and how that has impacted the way people try to make social change. And I want to say briefly, especially after hearing this, that the way we use media and the mode of media use for the Media Mobilizing Project it's quite different than what we're hearing here, and that's fine. We just don't work with criminal justice per se in any way. We're more aiming at grassroots media work that is used really to build social movements across different campaigns in the cities. And I'll talk some more about that. But I guess I'll try to be somewhat brief, because what will really make it relevant will be your questions as much as anything else. So the aim of the Media Mobilizing Project is to partner with local community-led organizations and facilitate grassroots media production. And that is particularly to advance socioeconomic justice in the city, and do that through what we think of as self-empowerment of disenfranchised communities. And those are communities that are often not given a chance to represent themselves, and most likely and most often represented. And it's done through giving them the ability to tell their own stories and share those stories and distribute those stories. And so we like to think that we have four basic goals. One is to build a community media infrastructure, and in Philadelphia, and again that works in two different ways. One is having a website, working to create a radio station with other groups like Scribe, who's William Size here, get our media on broadcast television, etc. And also to build the skills in the community so people can actually tell those stories. The second is to innovate and implement new tactics in the use of media as an organizing tool. And that could be anything from what was being talked about before, viral strategies. So, we're working on a security guard campaign, which takes place at Penn and Temple's campuses, where the security guards are outsourced to Allied Barton, and their wages are poverty wages. And we really want the students to step up, and one of the best ways to do that is to use Facebook, because that's where students are. So using new strategies, or not new, but somewhat new strategies. The other thing is to train, as I said, community members to tell their own stories. And there is an analysis that kind of like grounds our work, and that is something we all know, that we've entered a new era. In this era, there's a lot of chances to produce and participate in the creation of media. But at the same time that there's this new production process, and there's blogs, podcasts, cheaper editing tools, cheaper video cameras, in that same moment, there's an increasingly undemocratic and unequal structure, and particularly economic structure, we think. So while people are having this new access, they're having less chance to have their stories be heard. And again, this is very well illustrated by the mass media, which is increasingly consolidated. In fact, just yesterday the FCC put forth a plan to loosen up ownership of mass media even more, which they're going to try to push through by the end of the year. And basically it makes us believe that the right to be heard in this era is more important than the enshrined right of freedom of speech. So again, we work with a bunch of groups in the city. And I'm going to name a few. Juntos, which is a Mexican community-based immigrant organization. Unite Here, which is a union that works with hospitality workers. The Taxi Workers Alliance of Pennsylvania. The Community Leadership Institute, the Multi-Community Alliance. Penn Security Guards and Temple Security Guards. And residents associations that are fighting around issues of housing and gentrification. And these groups now are this project. The Media Mobilizing Project has a community board made up of 2 leaders from each of these groups, and they direct the focus of what we do. And as I said, the work is broken up into 4 areas. It's broken up into housing and gentrification, workers' rights and new labor, immigration, and youth and education. And what's important is that with each group, for us, the work is very different. And so our work is very asymmetrical. Because some groups, you'll see, want to learn how to make media. So the Taxi Workers Alliance, it's very useful for them to know how to do radio, because then they can tell stories on the radio that reach each other and while they're driving cabs, etc. But another group doesn't have the time or the capacity to learn to create media, so we're going to have to, in those cases, we make media for them. And one of the cases, which I was going to show a video here, and I'm going to try, but for some reason it's not working. We made a video recently with Pennsylvania Head Start. And Pennsylvania Head Start, well, all of the National Head Start is dealing with the problem with the Congress. The Congress is considering passing a law which disempowers what are called policy councils. And policy councils are the community-led part of every Head Start, which has equal right in making decisions about how that Head Start is run. And what the Congress wants to do is disempower them from making those decisions. So we made a video about Head Start and about the policy councils in Pennsylvania particularly. It's called Hope in Hard Times. I'm going to try to show it, but it's on the PA Head Start website, and for some reason their website is failing. I just tried it today. So let's see.
$10 an hour. Right? You struggle from paycheck to paycheck at $10 an hour. Well, you got to figure out, am I gonna eat this week or pay my electric and just go for, without eating until next week, or am I gonna buy groceries or leave the rent go, or you know what I mean? There's just nothing around, and what is around, it's not even worth it.
Parents do struggle, even if the both of them are working, they're still struggling to make ends meet. And back in the olden days when my parents were young, it was always mom was always home, and dad was working, and things were a lot different then. You weren't struggling as much as for sure.
I see a lot of change as there's nothing for the kids to do.
No, everybody complains. Oh, the kids are going out there, the kids are, well, they just have to do with freedom. There is nothing at all to do, except for hang out while I'm working on it.
I mean, now jobs. My husband was working. He got laid off. He was getting unemployment. he got maybe 2 checks out of it. They were running right away to get another job. But when you don't have nowhere to go, what are you supposed to do? Yeah, there's a lot of restaurants out here, but it's minimum wage job. You take that, so all the bills that you have, what are you going to do? How can you make it? Are you paying your regular house bills, or are you paying hospital bills?
They want to be involved with their child's education and in their lives, but have to work and they're struggling.
To find a babysitter nowadays, it's hard, you know. Did you go out and get a job? What are you going to do with your kids? You know, you put them in daycare. How are you going to pay for that daycare? There's another bill.
Oh, a lot of people they want the children to go to preschool, but they can't afford it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And they work, but they can't pay for it, so then they put them in Head Start, because they know that's what they're getting, a better education. Right.
I'm going to stop it there, if I can figure out how to. I was saying the work we do is asymmetrical, so some groups it's very different than others. And with Head Start, we made that video. And it doesn't look as good on the screen. It looks a lot better on the smaller screen, and I apologize for that. But what we did with that, and first of all, there was no production costs. As Sarah said before, it was sweat that made this. No one was paid anything. It's about a 25-minute video. And the Head Start Association, the National Head Start Association, burned about 1,000 of these, and they gave one to every congressperson in the U.S. before this decision, which hasn't come up yet at the level of Congress, around whether to disempower these policy councils. And actually, and it's interesting to hear you all talk about storytelling and legal stuff. We don't know if people will see the whole thing, and the real blush of the story comes at the back end. But and those are the sort of things we'll learn. But it was something that Head Start got really behind as a tool for pushing to stop the Congress from disempowering communities in decisions of how Head Starts are run. But it brings me to the way we think about media, which I think is sort of important, and I'm not sure exactly how it engages with legal advocacy and visual media, but we see it as operating at 3 levels, and it kind of goes to what was being discussed at the beginning about us doing video inside meetings. At one level, and probably the most important and the least thought about, we see media as a tool, and video and visual media as a tool of communications within groups and struggles. And this is a really important level and one that's not often thought about. So we often make tools, for instance, with Unite Here, we make video tools about people talking about what it's like to work in a hotel in Philadelphia when they have these new big beds that you see the commercials about, and how hard it is to turn over these rooms and the amount of rooms in a day and the amount of injuries that hospitality workers have. But we don't make that to broadcast it out to anybody. We make that video to show within the hotels, to cohere a sense of identity around the struggle. So it's a form of communications at an internal level. And then there's a second level. As I said, we've brought together a network of groups, and these are community-led groups who are fighting over issues of poverty and socioeconomic justice. So the other level of this use of video and other media is to cohere across these different struggles. Because we believe very strongly that the struggle of parents at Head Start and the struggle of people who are hospitality workers at the Hyatt Regents on the waterfront and taxi drivers ultimately are very similar. But in this day and age, people feel very fragmented. And so when people share stories and sit together and learn each other's struggles and make stories about one another, it begins to cohere a larger network of struggle, which is something we're trying to do. And the third level of communications is, of course, the most classic, which is broadcast. So this video we made to broadcast out to a larger audience, to let people know about the issues that Pennsylvania Head Start and the National Head Start Association is facing. And just around that, I mean, there's another part of our strategy, which is we believe that media and visual communications is really important in this day and age, particularly because of the change in the way work and labor is in this moment. In past, at least in the story of bygone eras, you would have a factory, and at that factory you would have 1,000 laborers working together at a machine, seeing each other every day. But that's not the case now. Today you have 2 security guards at the front of the law school. You have 5 people who are flipping burgers at McDonald's, and you have 4 people in North Philly who are having their houses seized because of eminent domain. And the struggles and issues that they face are fragmented, even in Philly, even in a city. So the role of media for us then is to do what geographic space used to do, to break this fragmentation, to break the isolation. And we found that it does play a really good role in that. I want to close up and show one more quick video. The only other thing I'm going to really talk about really quickly is this new project that we were doing, which is called Our Cities, Our Voices, Video Newscasts in the Digital Age. And basically we got really lucky and got a grant from the Knight Foundation to create an immigrant newscast project in Philadelphia. And the challenge to win this grant was to make a project that would use digital technology to create physical communities. And so what we're doing is we're starting with Juntos, which I mentioned is a Mexican community-based organization, and we're training Mexican immigrants in basic computer skills, web skills, and video production skills. And we're going to train about 20 to 30 in the Mexican immigrant community first. And that starts in November, and we hope to create production crews that are operating in that community, creating stories. And then after that, we're going to move into other immigrant communities, teaming with the Taxi Workers Alliance, which has a large amount of Eastern European immigrants, South Asian immigrants, and African immigrants, and other groups that we team with. And we're going to also train them in video production, basic web skills, and basic computer skills. And but we also believe really strongly that this must be tied to getting people online, digital inclusion. So at the same moment, we're working really hard to team with the Philadelphia's Municipal Wireless Network to find a way to get people online for cheap or no cost. Also to get them computers, to get them the computer classes they need, because video production is great and empowering people to tell their stories is great, but this sort of digital communications is a human right at this point. So we're trying really hard to make that happen at the city level. So I'm just going to show one other video, primarily because it's something we did this week, and we did it really fast. The Philadelphia Student Union, which is another group we work with, had an action in Philadelphia on Wednesday. The Philadelphia Student Union is a youth-led, high school-based organization that fights for educational equity in the city, and right now they have a real concern about the way the school district, or the School Reform Commission, is going to deal with problematic schools, or what are called corrective action to schools. So they had an action on Wednesday of this week to kind of bring attention to these issues. And so on Saturday, we sat down with students and we made a video, and from the interviews to getting the final edit took 6 hours. And we distributed it out across huge networks and a huge press list, and it generated a lot of action. So I'm going to play that real quick, and then I'll just close out so we can take questions.
Well, the Philadelphia City Union is a youth-led nonprofit organization.
We have meetings in schools and also in specific schools, and also citywide meetings where all the schools get together. So we run campaigns like this one against privatization and for equity.
On October 17th, it's a day of action where the Philadelphia Student Union, we're going to get together with, we're going to try to gather more students from our chapters to go down to the school district.
We're having an action on this Wednesday to talk about the corrective action schools, corrective action 2 schools.
Corrective Action 2 schools are schools who didn't make annual yearly progress on the PSSAs for 5 years in a row or more, I think. And I think the biggest thing that's creating those schools is the inequitable funding within the district and across the state as a whole, too.
66 schools in Philadelphia right now that are in corrective action 2. So the district has to figure out what to do with them to like make them meet adequate yearly progress.
And also, I think another big issue that's kind of creating that Corrective Action 2 situation is the inequitable teacher distribution, where you have the best and most experienced teachers kind of feeling like they have to flee and run away from these schools that actually need their help the most, and how a lot of them end up in the suburbs or at the magnet schools.
So when there's like private corporations that come in to run schools, they're not concerned with the like value of the education. They're concerned with making money off of it.
We want equity in the district because, for example, my school doesn't have a lot of resources. We don't have enough textbooks or like supplies, and like other like new schools have more resources. They have laptops they can give the students and all the books, updated books. So we need that. Everyone deserves to have that kind of stuff, not just one group of kids that go to one kind of school.
Our school, we don't have a lot of books, like, and plus there's like overcrowding in the classrooms. So it's probably a classroom that seats 30 people, but there's like 40 to 45 people inside that classroom, forcing people to sit on radiators and all that. Like, even if you're 1 minute late to class, you got a seat on a radiator and you don't have a book.
I think young people can do a lot of things, and mostly adults, they kind of push us down and say, you know, young people can't do this, young people can't do that. And I think that's kind of stupid because, you know, we can do as much things as, you know, other adults.
Students don't know that they have every right that's going on in their school, and students just don't know that. They think it's something going on in their school they don't like. Like a whole lot of students might not like it either, so they just don't know they can do nothing about it.
I'm expecting that the students are really going to be able to show the SRC that we do have power and that we can organize and that we can make our voice heard even if you don't want to let us have our voice heard.
It's not just the parents that have to get involved, also the students have to get involved. If they want a better education, then I think the students should stand up for what they want instead of what the adults want, you know?
Student union.
And the only interesting point about that is honestly you made that in 5 hours from the interviews to the edit, and then got it out. And so, and the executive director of the student union, Nizmi Zarenko, met with press after that, before the action, and a lot of the press in the city said that they had watched this, and this impacted their coverage of both the issue of the School Reform Commission and how it was dealing with schooling, but also the Philadelphia Student Union action I have after. So it was something we were able to do quick and have real impact. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you.